The conference chamber of the Galactic Council stretched before Ambassador Han Ju-woo like a cathedral of glass and light. Representatives from 200 worlds sat in their designated sections, their varied forms creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. Ji-woo had walked these halls for 15 years, and in that time, he had negotiated 17 trade agreements, prevented for border conflicts, and earned the respect of species whose ancestors had traveled the stars before humans discovered fire. He believed in this place. He believed in the power of words to prevent bloodshed. His communication tablet vibrated against his palm. The message was marked urgent, coded in Earth's highest priority classification. Gi-woo excused himself quietly from the session discussing mining rights in the Outer Rim and stepped into a private chamber. What he read made his blood turn cold. New Jinju was burning. The colony world that 3 million humans called home was under attack. Orbital bombardment. Civilian targets. The Vorath Empire had struck without warning, without provocation, without mercy. The first reports estimated hundreds of thousands dead in the initial strikes. The numbers kept climbing as he read, each update more horrific than the last. Ji-woo's hands shook. He had visited New Jinju 2 years ago. He remembered children playing in parks, farmers tending crops under alien suns, artists painting murals on building walls. All of that was ash now. The Vorath war cruisers were systematically destroying every city, every town, every settlement. They were not trying to conquer. They were trying to erase. He returned to the council chamber, his face a mask of controlled fury. The session continued, delegates arguing about extraction percentages and transport routes. Gi-woo walked directly to the center podium, interrupting a trade representative from the Kelvin Concordat mid-sentence.
Ow.
New Jinju is under attack, he said, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. The Vorath Empire is bombarding my people. Millions are dying as we discuss mining quotas. The chamber fell silent. Heads turned, expressions ranging from shock to calculation. The Vorath representative, a massive creature named Thekanor, rose from his seat. His species stood 3 meters tall, covered in armored plates that had evolved over millions of years. The Vorath had built their empire through conquest. Absorbing 400 systems through overwhelming military force, the humans occupied territory claimed by the Vorath Dominion, Thekanor said, his translator rendering his growls into flat, emotionless words. They refused to vacate. We acted within our rights. New Jinju has been a human colony for 60 years, Ji-woo said, fighting to keep his voice steady. Your empire made no claim to that system until 3 weeks ago. This is naked aggression, and the council must respond. Thekanor's laugh was a rumbling sound that echoed off the chamber walls. The humans speak of aggression? Your species has existed in council space for 2 centuries, hiding behind trade ships and diplomatic immunity. You have no fleet worthy of the name. You possess no weapons that would threaten a true military power. Perhaps if humanity had invested in strength rather than words, your people would not die so icily. Other delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided Ji-woo's gaze. The truth was bitter and obvious. Humanity had chosen the path of diplomacy. They had built their reputation on negotiation, on trade, on cultural exchange. The galaxy saw them as useful mediators, skilled merchants, but ultimately weak, a species that could be pushed aside when convenient. Gi-woo stood at the podium for 3 more hours, calling for council intervention, for sanctions, for anything. He cited 17 interstellar laws that the Vorath had violated. He presented evidence of civilian casualties, of deliberate targeting of hospitals and schools. He begged for the other species to remember the principles the council was founded upon. The council voted. 43 species supported intervention. 157 abstained or voted against. The mathematics of power were simple. The Vorath Empire was strong. Humanity was not. No one wanted to anger a military superpower over a weak species, no matter how sympathetic their plight. Across the gulf of space, Captain Park Minji received the distress call from New Jinju. Her ship, The Indomitable was a defense vessel assigned to patrol the outer colonies. She pushed her engines beyond safety limits, racing toward the colony at maximum speed. Her crew of 200 worked frantically. Knowing they were heading into a battle they could not win, they arrived 6 hours after the bombardment began. 6 hours too late? Park stared at her view screen in silence. New Jinja's cities were craters. The orbital farms were debris fields. The Vorith fleet had already departed, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Her sensors detected life signs scattered across the planet. Us survivors. Perhaps 500,000 out of 3 million. The rest were gone. Park ordered rescue operations to begin immediately. Her crew worked for days, pulling survivors from collapsed buildings, distributing medical supplies, evacuating the most critically injured. She filed her report, knowing that words on a screen could never capture what she witnessed. Entire families erased. Generations of human achievement turned to slag and ash. On Earth, President Li Doyen convened his military council. The room was deep beneath the capital, shielded against surveillance, designed for moments like this. 27 men and women sat around the table, their faces grim. Fleet Admiral Kim Taeyon, Commander Osun, Intelligence Director Choi Hyran, and others whose names and faces the galaxy had never seen. The diplomatic approach has failed, Li said simply. The galaxy has made its position clear. They will not intervene. They will not protect us. The Vorith have sent us a message. Submit or be destroyed. What are our options? Asked Yoon Subane, the youngest person in the room and one of Earth's most skilled negotiators. Li looked around the table. We respond. Admiral Taeyoon pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's defensive fleet, the ships registered with the Galactic Council. 23 cruisers, 47 destroyers, 112 smaller patrol craft, respectable for a peaceful species. But nothing that could challenge the Vorith's 2,000 warships. Then Taeyoon entered a classified code. The display changed. New ships appeared, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Vessels built in secret over 150 years. Constructed in hidden shipyards in deep space, far from galactic eyes. The Shadow Fleet? Protocol Omega, Li said. We always knew this day might come. We hoped it would not. We worked for peace for 2 centuries. But we are not naive. We remember our own history. We know what happens to the weak, Commander O spoke up. The Vorith expect us to surrender. They think we are merchants and diplomats playing at civilization. They have no idea what humans are capable of when pushed beyond reason. Then let us educate them, Li said. Recall Ambassador Han. Activate the reserve fleets. Send the Vorith a message of our own. Back on the council station, Jiwoo received his orders. Return to Earth immediately. His mission had failed. 2.1 million humans dead, and the galaxy had offered nothing but sympathy and empty words. He recorded one final message before leaving, broadcasting it on all council frequencies. For 200 years, humanity has sought peace. We have traded fairly. We have negotiated honestly. We have asked only for the same respect shown to other species. The Vorath Empire has answered us with genocide. The Galactic Council has answered us with silence. Humanity will remember both responses. The message was simple, short, but every species in the galaxy heard the weight behind those words. Something had changed. The humans were no longer asking for help. They were done asking for anything. The transport shuttle carrying Ambassador Han Jiwoo descended through Earth's atmosphere in silence. He stared out the window at the planet below, the blue and green world that had birthed humanity and sent them to the stars. How many times had he made this journey? How many times had he left Earth confident that diplomacy could solve any problem? That faith felt like a child's dream now, shattered against the reality of burning cities and millions of dead. The shuttle landed at a military facility he had never seen before. It did not appear on any public maps. Armed guards escorted him through corridors carved deep into mountain rock, past security checkpoints that scanned everything from his biometrics to his quantum signature. Finally, he entered a command center filled with screens, holographic displays, and personnel moving with urgent purpose. President Li Doyan stood at the center of it all, watching data streams flow across multiple displays. He turned as Ji Woo approached, and the ambassador saw something he had never seen in Li's eyes before. Not anger, not even rage. Something colder. Calculation. Ambassador Han Li said formally, "Your service to Earth's diplomatic corps has been exemplary. What you witnessed at the council was not a failure of your skills. It was a revelation of truth. The galaxy respects only power." "Then we have no power," Ji Woo said bitterly. "Our fleet cannot stand against the Voroth. I have read the intelligence reports. They have 2,000 warships. We have less than 200 registered with the Council." He gestured to a display. "That is what the galaxy sees. That is what we wanted them to see." The hologram changed, and Ji Woo's breath caught in his throat. Ships appeared on the display, hundreds of them, then thousands. Sleek vessels that looked nothing like Earth's registered fleet. These were warships, pure and simple, designed with no purpose but combat. The data scrolled past, showing specifications that made no sense. Weapons systems decades beyond what the Council believed humans possessed. Engines that could cross distances in days that took other species weeks. Protocol Omega, Li explained. "We began this program 160 years ago during the first contact with the Kelvin Concordat. Our sociologists and military strategists ran simulations of human integration into galactic society. Every model showed the same result. Species that appeared weak were exploited. Species that appeared too strong were preemptively destroyed by coalitions. We needed a middle path." Fleet Admiral Kim Tae-yoon stepped forward, a man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen classified horrors. "We showed the galaxy a peaceful humanity. We became merchants, diplomats, cultural ambassadors, but we never forgot our own history. We never forgot that peace is only possible when predators know the cost of violence." "The Shadow Fleet," Ji Woo whispered, understanding dawning. "We have been building a secret military for over a century." "Not just military," said Intelligence Director Choi Hyran, a woman whose appearance was carefully maintained to be utterly forgettable. "Industrial capacity. Training programs. Every human who emigrates to the colonies receives military training as part of their education. Every merchant vessel has hidden weapon systems. Every trade station is actually a fortress. We have 4 billion trained reservists who can be mobilized in 72 hours. Ji Woo's mind reeled. "The Council has no idea. The Council sees what we show them," Li said. "We needed time. Time to spread throughout the galaxy. Time to build our infrastructure. Time to prepare. The Voroth have given us the justification to reveal ourselves." "They will attack again," Taeyeon said, pulling up intelligence reports. "Our analysts predict the Voroth will strike Songdo Station within 2 weeks. It is a mining colony, 50,000 humans, minimal defenses according to public records. The Voroth want to break our will, force us to surrender multiple colonies before we consider resistance. Songdo Station has 3,000 combat-ready personnel and enough hidden weapons to destroy a fleet," Hyran added. "But we will not fight them there. We will draw them in and show them what humanity truly is." Yoon Soo-bin entered the command center, moving quickly to the tactical display. She had been working on evacuation protocols, organizing the rescue of human colonies in the danger zone. Most civilian population centers can be evacuated in 9 days. The ones that cannot be emptied in time have underground shelters rated to survive orbital bombardment. "The Voroth think they are hunting prey," Commander Oh-sung said, his voice hard as steel. This was a man who had trained for war his entire life, who had spent years preparing for a conflict he hoped would never come. "They believe we will scatter, beg, surrender. They have studied our diplomatic history and concluded we are cowards who prefer talking to fighting." "We prefer talking because we know the cost of fighting," Li said quietly. "Every human knows the cost. We taught ourselves that lesson in blood before we ever left Earth. We will talk until talking fails. Then we will do what must be done." Across the solar system, hidden shipyards burst into activity. Facilities built into asteroids, disguised as mining operations, revealed their true purpose. The Shadow Fleet began to wake. Ships that had waited in cold storage for decades powered up their systems. Crews that had trained in simulations climbed aboard real warships for the first time. Weapons that existed only as classified blueprints were loaded into firing chambers. The transformation happened in days. Earth's entire industrial capacity shifted to war production. Factories that built medical equipment retooled to manufacture ammunition. Agricultural stations began stockpiling food for extended campaigns. Communication networks established during peacetime activated their military protocols. The machine that humanity had built over 2 centuries of careful preparation began to move. Captain Park. Mingi received new orders. While overseeing rescue operations at New Jinju, she was to take command of a vessel she had never heard of. The Retribution, a ship that did not officially exist. When she boarded, she understood immediately. This was not a patrol craft. This was a weapon. Every system, every component, every crew member was optimized for one purpose: destroying enemy vessels. Her new crew numbered 400, and every single one of them had lost someone at New Jinju. They wore black uniforms without rank insignia, without names. They were not there for glory or medals. They were there for vengeance, cold and calculated. "We are bait," Minji told her bridge crew, laying out their orders. "The Vorath will come to Songdo Station, expecting an easy victory. We will be waiting. The Shadow Fleet will be waiting. And we will teach them that humanity's patience should never be mistaken for weakness." The Galactic Council watched Earth's response with confusion. Human ships began withdrawing from Council space. Diplomatic missions packed up and departed. Trade routes were abandoned. It looked like capitulation, like a species pulling back in fear, preparing to surrender. Some species expressed sympathy. Others, like the Vorath, expressed satisfaction. The humans knew their place now, but a few species noticed details that did not fit the narrative. Human merchant vessels did not flee toward Earth. They moved toward defensive positions. Civilian transports were not panicking. They followed precise evacuation plans. The human withdrawal was too organized, too purposeful. This was not retreat. This was repositioning. Theckener, the Vorath representative, sent a message to his empire's military command. "The humans are preparing to defend their remaining colonies. They will likely fortify Songdo Station. Send sufficient force to overwhelm any resistance. Make it quick. Make it brutal. Break their will completely." The Vorath High Command agreed. They assembled 300 warships, a force large enough to sterilize a planet. They would jump to Songdo Station, destroy any human vessels, and give the colony 1 hour to surrender before bombardment began. If the humans resisted, they would suffer the same fate as New Jinju. The message would be clear: submit or die. Deep in Earth's military command center, President Lee watched the Vorath fleet movements on the display. Intelligence reports confirmed their target, their timing, their ship composition. Everything was proceeding exactly as predicted. Humans had studied war for thousands of years before leaving Earth. They understood strategy, tactics, logistics. They understood the psychology of aggression. "I think overwhelming force will break us," Lee said to the officers assembled around him. "They think we will see their fleet in despair. They have not considered that we have been preparing for this exact scenario for over a century." Admiral Taeyan smiled, a predator's smile. "The Shadow Fleet is in position. 500 vessels against their 300. But they do not know we are there. They will jump into Songdo Station's system, expecting frightened merchants. They will find hunters," give the order, Lee said. "No more hiding. No more pretending. The galaxy wanted to see human strength. Show them." The message went out on all military channels, encrypted in codes the galaxy had never seen, transmitted through networks the Council did not know existed. Across dozens of systems, the Shadow Fleet received its orders. Humanity was going to war. The Vorath fleet emerged from quantum-fold space in perfect formation. 300 warships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city, appeared at the edge of Songdo Station's system. Fleet Commander Krathnak surveyed the sensor readings with satisfaction. The human mining colony orbited a gas giant, its industrial platforms clearly visible. A handful of small vessels clustered near the station, exactly the minimal Defense Force intelligence had predicted. "Broadcast the surrender demand," Krathnek ordered. "1 hour to evacuate to the surface. Then we destroy the station." The message transmitted across all frequencies. The human vessels near Songdo Station did not respond. They did not flee. They simply held position, as if waiting for something. Krathnek found their defiance amusing. Perhaps these humans needed a demonstration. Target the nearest human vessel. Fire a warning shot across their bow. The Varath flagship's main cannon charged, energy readings spiking across the electromagnetic spectrum. Every ship in both fleets detected it. The weapon fired, a lance of superheated plasma crossing the distance in seconds. It would pass meters from the human ship, close enough to show them the power they faced, far enough to avoid actually destroying them. A warning, a chance to surrender. The plasma beam never reached its target. Summit. Hing intercepted it midway, a barrier that shouldn't exist. Energy shields operating on principles the Vorath had never encountered. The plasma dispersed harmlessly against the invisible wall. "What?" Krathnek demanded, but his tactical officer had no answer. Human technology was not supposed to include shields of that quality. Their intelligence reports said nothing about defensive systems that advanced. Then the human vessels moved. Not away from the Vorath fleet, but toward it, accelerating at speeds that made Krathnek's ectical display flash warnings. Impossible acceleration for ships that size. The human vessels would tear themselves apart at those speeds. The GI forces would liquefy any crew inside, except they didn't. The ships closed the distance in seconds, moving with precision that seemed more like computer calculation than organic piloting. And behind them, space itself seemed to tear open. Quantum-fold portals erupted throughout the system. Hundreds of them, and through each portal came warships. Human warships. Not the small patrol craft registered with the Galactic Council, but massive combat vessels bristling with weapons. 500 ships materialized in perfect attack formation, surrounding the Vorath fleet on all sides. Captain Park Minji stood on the bridge of the Retribution, her hands steady on the tactical display. She had spent 3 days running combat simulations for this exact scenario. Every officer on every human ship had memorized their positions, their targeting priorities, their movement patterns. They had drilled this operation until it was instinct. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet channel. "Weapons free. Show them what happens when you murder our people." The battle began in silence, as all space battles do, the vacuum unable to carry the sound of weapons fire. But what happened in the next 47 minutes would echo across the galaxy for generations. Human weapons systems activated, and the Vorath discovered that everything they thought they knew about human technology was wrong. Quantum entanglement targeting systems locked onto Vorath ships, weapons that could not miss because they were linked to their targets at a subatomic level. Missiles accelerated to relativistic speeds, turned impossibly tight corners, pursued targets that tried to evade. The Vorath returned fire, their plasma cannons and kinetic weapons launching everything they had, but human point defense systems intercepted 98% of incoming fire. The remaining 2% hit human shields that absorbed damage that should have penetrated hulls. When Vorath weapons did manage to damage a human ship, automated repair systems sealed breaches in seconds. Krathnek watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered. They fought with a coordination that seemed telepathic. Ships moving in perfect synchronization, covering each other's blind spots, concentrating fire on targets with mathematical precision. No wasted shots. No hesitation. Just cold, efficient destruction. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships fall back to Rally Point Theta." But the human fleet had positioned itself specifically to prevent retreat. Every escape vector was covered. Ships that tried to run found themselves targeted by multiple human vessels. Overwhelmed before they could charge their fold drives, the Vorath were not being fought. They were being hunted. Commander Oh-sung led the boarding operations. His assault teams used human advantages that the Voreth had never considered. Human reaction time was 3 times faster than Vorath reflexes. Human endurance let them fight for hours without rest, while Vorath warriors tired. Human teamwork developed over thousands of years of warfare. Overwhelmed Vorath individual strength. When human marines cut through the hull of a Vorath cruiser, the defenders inside found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to predict their every move. Humans had studied Vorath combat doctrine for decades. They knew every tactic, every weapon, every weakness. The boarding actions were brutal and one-sided. Within minutes, OS teams had captured the ship's command deck. Broadcasting on all Vorath frequencies, O reported to Captain Park, "Every ship in their fleet can watch us take this cruiser apart from the inside." It was psychological warfare, and it was devastating. The Vorath had built their empire on the belief that they were superior warriors. Now they watched humans move through their ships like predators through prey. The message was clear. Physical strength meant nothing against trained killers, who had been preparing for this fight for a century and a half. 47 minutes after the battle began, it was over. 287 Voreth warships were destroyed or disabled. 13 more had been captured intact, their crews taken prisoner. The Vorath fleet that was supposed to break humanity's will had been annihilated. Human casualties: 12 vessels damaged, 0 destroyed. 23 humans wounded, none killed. The numbers were impossible. 300 against 500 should have been a difficult fight, not a massacre. But the Voreth had made a fundamental error. They had assumed human military capability matched their diplomatic profile. They thought they were fighting merchants and negotiators who had acquired some weapons. Instead, they had attacked a species that had studied warfare longer than the Vorath had traveled space. Krathnek survived, his flagship disabled but intact. Human boarding teams secured the vessel and brought him to their command ship. He expected execution, perhaps torture. Instead, Captain Park Mingi met him in a conference room, offering him water and a seat. "I don't understand," Krathnek said in his language, the translator rendering his confusion. "Your species has no military tradition. Our intelligence shows only peaceful expansion, diplomatic solutions. Where did this fleet come from?" Park's expression was cold. "We have been preparing for this conversation for 160 years. We hoped we would never need to have it. You forced our hand, preparing. For what? War with the Vorath. War with anyone who mistakes patience for weakness. Our species has a saying, Commander Krathnek: walk softly and carry a big stick. For 2 centuries, we walked softly. We try to earn respect through fairness, through honest dealing, through diplomacy. Your empire answered that approach by slaughtering 3 million of our people." Park pulled up a holographic display showing the battle they had just fought. "This is humanity operating under strict rules of engagement. We did not target your life support systems. We did not use our most destructive weapons. We gave your crews opportunities to surrender. We took prisoners. This was humanity being restrained." Krathnek stared at the tactical breakdown, seeing for the first time how thoroughly his fleet had been outmaneuvered, how precisely the humans had controlled every aspect of the battle. "What are you?" "We are what happens when a warlike species decides to become peaceful. We remember what we were. We remember what we are capable of. And we prepared for the day someone would force us to remember those lessons. Across the galaxy, every species with monitoring stations in that sector detected the battle. The energy signatures were impossible to ignore. Within hours, the footage began circulating through galactic networks. Humans had obliterated a major Vorath fleet in less than an hour. The peaceful merchants, the skilled diplomats, the species everyone thought they understood, had revealed themselves to be something entirely different. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions convened. Representatives who had dismissed humanity's pleas for help now demanded explanations. How had humans hidden such military capacity? What else were they hiding? Should they be considered a threat? Ambassador Han Ju-woo, back on Earth, recorded a single message in response to the Council's questions. It was brief and broadcast on all official channels. For 200 years, humanity asked the galaxy for one thing: recognition of our right to exist in peace. The Vorath Empire denied that right. The Galactic Council declined to defend it. Humanity will now defend itself, and we will extend that defense to any species facing similar aggression. We did not choose this path, but we will walk it as far as necessary. The Vorath started this war. Humanity will finish it. The message ended, but its implications rippled through galactic politics like a shockwave. Humanity was no longer asking for protection. They were offering it, backed by military force no one had seen coming. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and every empire, every alliance, every species had to recalculate their relationship with these strange, patient, terrifyingly prepared humans. Emperor Calthex of the Vorath Empire did not believe the initial reports. A complete fleet destroyed by humans? Impossible. The humans were traitors, diplomats, or species that had existed in Council space for 2 centuries without showing any significant military capability. Commander Krathnak must have made tactical errors, become overconfident, allowed himself to be ambushed through incompetence. Then he watched the recordings. Every ship in the destroyed Ida had transmitted battle data before being disabled. Calthex watched human vessels move with precision his own forces could not match. He saw weapons systems decades beyond Vorath technology. He witnessed boarding actions where human warriors dismantled his elite soldiers with contemptuous ease. The truth was undeniable and terrifying. The humans had been hiding their true capabilities for generations. Total mobilization, Calthex ordered his military council. Every fleet, every garrison, every reserve unit, the humans have revealed themselves as a threat to Vorath dominance. They must be crushed completely before other species rally to their cause. Within days, the Vorath Empire's full military might began moving toward human space. 2,000 warships, 50 million soldiers, supply chains spanning dozens of systems. It was the largest military operation in Vorath history, designed to overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. If the humans had 500 advanced warships, the Vorath would bring 4 times that number. If human soldiers were skilled, Vorath warriors were numerous. The empire that had conquered 400 systems would not be stopped by one lucky battle. On Earth, President Li Doyan watched the Vorath mobilization with grim satisfaction. They are committing everything, he told his assembled commanders. They see us as an existential threat now. Good. That makes them predictable. Admiral Taiyun displayed the tactical situation on a 3-dimensional hologram. The Vorath supply lines are stretched across 70 systems. They are pulling forces from garrison duty, leaving occupied worlds understaffed. Their logistics network is vulnerable. Intelligence Director Choi Hyren added her analysis. We have been infiltrating Vorath communication networks since the first attack. Their encryption is sophisticated by galactic standards, but we broke it in 11 hours. We have access to their command channels, their supply manifests, their fleet movements. They are fighting blind against an enemy that can see everything they do. Captain Park Minji, now promoted to Admiral after the Songdo Station victory, outlined the human strategy. Operation Reckoning. 3-pronged assault. First prong targets their supply depots. Cut their logistics, and their fleet becomes a collection of ships that cannot refuel, rearm, or repair. Second prong hits their communication relay stations. Blind them. Force them to operate without coordination. Third prong, we take the war to Vorath Prime itself. Ambassador Han Ji-woo stood in the command center watching military planning that would have been unthinkable months ago. He had spent 15 years preventing conflicts through negotiation. Now he watched humanity plan the destruction of an empire. The contradiction tore at him, but the memory of New Jinja's burning cities steadied his resolve. Diplomacy had failed not because humans were unskilled at it, but because the galaxy respected only strength. I need to address the Galactic Council, Jiwoo said. Other species need to understand why this is happening. Tell them the truth. All of it. Giwoo returned to the council station, walking into chambers that had once felt like a temple of peace. Now they felt like a reminder of failure. He took the central podium and began speaking, his words transmitted across the galaxy. For 300 years, the Vorath Empire has expanded through conquest. 17 species have been absorbed into their territory, their populations subjugated or scattered. The Council has documented these actions, expressed concerns, passed resolutions. None of it stopped the expansion. The Vorath learned that the Council protects species with powerful allies, but abandons those who stand alone. He pulled up classified documents, intelligence humanity had gathered over decades. Human analysts have tracked Vorath expansion patterns for 50 years. We knew they would eventually target human space. We found evidence of their planning 5 years ago. The attack on New Jinju was not spontaneous aggression. It was a calculated test. They wanted to see if humanity would fight or fold. They wanted to measure our response before committing to full invasion. The council chamber stirred. Representatives leaned forward, accessing the documents Jiwoo had made public. The evidence was undeniable. The Vorath had planned this war for years, studying human colonies, assessing defenses, preparing the groundwork for conquest. The Vorath believed humanity would surrender after losing one colony. They thought we valued peace so highly that we would accept subjugation rather than fight. They made one critical error. They confused humanity's preference for peace with inability to wage war. We chose diplomacy because we understand the cost of violence. We have fought wars that nearly destroyed our own species. We learn those lessons in blood and carry the memory in our cultural DNA. Jiwoo's voice hardened. The Vorath will now receive an education in what humanity is capable of when pressed beyond all reason. And every species in this council should understand that humanity did not choose this path. We were forced onto it by an empire that saw kindness as weakness and restraint as cowardice. The human offensive began 3 days later. Operation Reckoning deployed 900 vessels, the majority of humanity's shadow fleet. They struck simultaneously across 70 Vorath systems, hitting targets with precision that demonstrated complete intelligence penetration. Commander, will soon lead Special Forces teams in deep strike operations. Human soldiers appeared on Vorath supply stations, disabled security, destroyed stockpiles, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They moved through Vorath-controlled space like ghosts, striking from impossible angles. Using wormhole technology, the galaxy did not know humans possessed. Choi. Hiren's intelligence network conducted parallel warfare in the digital realm. Human cyber warfare specialists infiltrated every Vorath computer system, implanting viruses, corrupting data, turning the Empire's own networks against it. Vorath commanders found their orders scrambled, their supplies misrouted, their tactical data unreliable. The technological superiority they had taken for granted became a liability as humans demonstrated mastery of electronic warfare. But the decisive campaign was the assault on Vorath Prime itself, the Empire's homeworld. Admiral Park led the attack personally, commanding a fleet of 300 ships that emerged from quantum-fold space at the edge of the system. The Vorath defenders had positioned 800 vessels to protect their capital. Confident that numerical superiority would prevail, the battle for Vorath Prime lasted 3 weeks. Not because the humans could not break through, but because they chose not to. Park's fleet engaged the defenders in carefully controlled combat, destroying ships but allowing escape pods to launch, disabling vessels but not annihilating them. It looked like a difficult siege, 2 forces evenly matched. In reality, Park was demonstrating human endurance. Her crews fought in rotating shifts, 8 hours on combat duty, 8 hours on maintenance and repair, 8 hours rest. The system was brutally efficient. Human ships could fight indefinitely, their crews fresh, their vessels constantly repaired and rearmed by support ships that operated around the clock. The Vorath defenders could not match this pace. Their warriors grew exhausted, their reaction times slowed, mistakes accumulated. Ships that had fought brilliantly in the first days of battle became sluggish in the second week. Dangerous to their own side in the third, the humans were grinding them down through simple, relentless pressure. On the 15th day, Emperor Kalthex activated his final weapon. The The Planet Killer device, a weapon the Vorath had developed centuries ago but never used, capable of cracking a planet's crust and rendering it uninhabitable. If the Empire fell, Calthex would ensure nothing remained for the humans to conquer. He broadcast his intention across all channels, daring the humans to proceed. Ambassador Ji-Woo, monitoring the battle from Earth, initiated the contingency plan. For weeks, human intelligence had been making contact with Vorath civilians, broadcasting evidence of their government's war crimes, showing them the truth about their empire's expansion. Now those contacts activated, rebellion erupted across Vorath Prime. Citizens who had been fed propaganda about inferior species learned that their empire had murdered 3 million humans without provocation. They discovered that their military was being systematically dismantled by a species their leaders had dismissed as weak. They saw recordings of human prisoners being treated with dignity, while Vorath prisoners revealed their own government planned to sacrifice the homeworld rather than accept defeat. The uprising moved quickly. Vorath civilians, aided by human intelligence operatives who had infiltrated the planet weeks earlier, seized military installations. The Planet Killer device was disabled 18 minutes before Calthex could activate it. The Emperor and his inner circle were arrested by their own people. The new Vorath Provisional Government contacted Admiral Park directly. "We surrender. We seek peace. Please, no more destruction." Park consulted with Earth Command. President Lee gave his approval. "Accept the surrender. Ensure their military is completely disarmed. We will negotiate terms." The war ended not with Earth destroying the Vorath homeworld, but with the Vorath people overthrowing their own government. Human casualties in the entire conflict: 45,000 military deaths, mostly from the initial defense of New Jinju. Vorath casualties: 3 million military personnel. 800 vessels destroyed, and an empire dissolved. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity had not just won a war. They had dismantled a 400-system empire in 11 months, using a combination of military force, intelligence operations, and information warfare that no species had seen before. The humans had fought with restraint, even while winning decisively, proving they could destroy their enemies, but choosing instead to defeat them. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives began to recalculate everything they thought they knew about humanity. These were not peaceful merchants who had accidentally acquired weapons. These were apex predators who had chosen to be peaceful and were now demonstrating exactly why that choice had been wise for everyone involved. The memorial on New Jinju took 3 years to build. It stood at the center of what had been the colony's capital. It's a structure of quantum crystal that rose 300 meters into the alien sky. Every name was etched into the crystal using atomic-level precision. 2.1 million souls who had died in the attack. The crystal was designed to catch starlight and refract it into colors that did not exist in nature. A reminder that those lives had been unique and irreplaceable. Ambassador Han Ju-woo stood before the memorial as construction teams made their final adjustments. The colony had been rebuilt around it, new structures rising from the ash of the old. 50,000 survivors had returned to reclaim their world, joined by 200,000 new settlers who wanted to prove that humanity would not be driven from the stars. Military installations ringed the colony now, visible reminders that New Jinju would never be defenseless again. President Lee Doyon stood beside Ji-Woo, watching the sunset paint the quantum crystal in impossible hues. "Is this what you imagined when you joined the diplomatic corps?" Lee asked quietly, standing on a memorial built from war. "I imagined a galaxy where memorials like this would never be necessary," Ji-Woo replied. "I was naive. I believed that rational beings would choose peace when presented with logical arguments. I did not account for those who see peace as an opportunity to exploit." "You were not naive. You were hopeful. There is a difference." Lee gestured at the rebuilt colony around them. "Hope built this. Hope that we could live among the stars without becoming what we once were. The Vorath tested that hope and found it had steel beneath it. The war had ended 11 months ago, but its consequences rippled through galactic politics still. The Vorath Empire had been dissolved, its territory placed under Galactic Council supervision. Human peacekeeping forces occupied 70 systems, not as conquerors, but as guarantors of stability. The former Vorath military had been demobilized, its weapons decommissioned under human supervision. War crime trials proceeded carefully, punishing leadership while offering rehabilitation to soldiers who had followed orders. Admiral Park Mingy commanded the Terran Defense Navy, the name given to humanity's now public military fleet. The Shadow Fleet designation had been retired. There were no more shadows. Humanity's military capability was common knowledge now. It's displayed in patrols that maintained order in formerly contested regions. 3 major galactic empires had requested formal defense treaties with Earth. 40 smaller species had done the same. The species that other powers had intimidated into silence now had a protector that could enforce peace. Commander Osung ran the Galactic Military Academy, a joint training facility where human soldiers taught combat techniques to species who had never developed comprehensive martial traditions. It was controversial. Some council members argued that humanity was militarizing the galaxy. Others pointed out that the alternative was leaving species defenseless against the next aggressive empire. O's response was simple and pragmatic. We are teaching defense, not conquest. Every species deserves the right to protect itself. Intelligence Director Choi Hyron led the Galactic Monitoring Network, an organization that tracked potential threats and prevented conflicts before they escalated. Her network included operatives from 17 species, all trained in human intelligence techniques. The galaxy had learned that wars prevented were better than wars won. Information shared openly prevented the kind of intelligence failures that had allowed the Voreth to plan their attack on New Jinju-Yun. Subin had become Earth's youngest ambassador. Assigned to the New Jinju colony specifically, she worked with survivors daily, helping them process trauma while building a future that honored their dead without being consumed by grief. She had discovered that diplomacy after war required different skills than diplomacy before it. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly, carefully, with actions rather than words. The Galactic Council had undergone transformation as well. Humanity now held a permanent security seat. With veto power over military actions and the authority to deploy peacekeeping forces, it was authority earned through demonstrated capability and restraint. Other species respected human military power, but they respected human judgment more. Earth had shown the galaxy how to win a war without becoming what they fought against. Ambassador Jiwoo addressed the council 3 years after the war ended. The chambers were different now. Species that had abstained from helping humanity during the crisis now sought human friendship. Representatives who had dismissed human complaints now listened carefully when Earth spoke. Power had shifted, and everyone understood the new reality. 3 years ago, I stood in this chamber and begged for help as my people died. I was denied. The council chose neutrality over justice, expediency over principle. I will not pretend that I have forgiven that choice, but I will not let that choice define humanity's relationship with the galaxy going forward. He pulled up a holographic display showing recent interventions. In the past year, human forces have prevented 4 attempted invasions, stopped colonial massacres, and negotiated 7 border disputes to peaceful conclusions. We did not do this to demonstrate power. We did it because species who cannot defend themselves deserve protection. We did it because the galaxy functions better when aggression has consequences. Jiwoo's tone shifted, becoming harder. But understand this clearly. Humanity's willingness to serve as peacekeepers does not mean we will tolerate being taken for granted. We maintain our military capability at full readiness. We will respond to aggression against human interests with the same efficiency we demonstrated against the Voreth. And we will not hesitate to act unilaterally if the Council fails to address threats to galactic peace. It was a statement no species had made to the Council in living memory. A clear declaration that humanity would not subordinate its interests to Council politics. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded approval. The balance of power had fundamentally changed. After the speech, several ambassadors approached Jiwoo privately. They wanted to discuss defense agreements, intelligence sharing arrangements, trade deals that favored human protection. The same species that had abandoned humanity 3 years ago now sought to align themselves with human power. Giwu negotiated with them professionally, securing favorable terms, building networks of obligation that would serve Earth's interests for generations. He felt no satisfaction in it. The diplomatic victories felt hollow compared to the 3 million names etched in quantum. Crystal on New Jinju, but he understood necessity. The galaxy respected only strength. Humanity would be strong enough that no one would dare attack them again. And humanity would extend that strength to protect others, ensuring that no species suffered what New Jinju had endured. President Lee addressed the United Earth government on the war's anniversary. His speech broadcast across human space and to the wider galaxy. 3 years ago, we were tested. An empire that saw kindness as weakness attacked us without mercy. They believed we would surrender rather than fight. They were wrong. Humanity fought and we won. But victory came at tremendous cost. The hologram behind him displayed New Jinju's memorial. The quantum crystal catching light in its crystalline structure. 2.1 million souls. Every one of them precious. Every one of them mourned. We cannot bring them back. We can only ensure they were the last. That is why Earth has committed to maintaining the Terran Defense Navy. That is why we train other species in self-defense. That is why we act as peacekeepers even when it is difficult and thankless. Lee's expression hardened. Some have accused humanity of militarizing the galaxy. They are correct. We are teaching the galaxy that peace requires strength. Diplomacy works only when backed by the capability to enforce its terms. We learned this lesson in blood. We will not forget it. And we will not allow others to suffer because they failed to learn it.